Murray Boast Henson was a journalist on one of the papers with small pages and big print. It would be pleasant to be able to say that he was none the worse for this, but sadly, this was not the case. He happened to be the only journalist that Arthur knew, so Arthur phoned him anyway. Oh, hey there, Derek. How's it going?
Oh, Thomas. Hey, what's up?
I guess it's around 12 o'clock, huh? We should do this Bitcoin talk show thing.
What? Would you look at that? And it's Wednesday. Let's do it. So, hey, I was thinking of you this week when I was reporting on Free Talk Live about this Satoshi Roundtable stuff, and I was like, oh, Thomas is not going to like this. Nobody's going to. We were talking about it. So, first of all, what is Satoshi Roundtable?
Well, according to this CoinDesk article, which was very dramatic and exciting, it was a Bilderberg-style retreat on a secret island, which, of course, if you know anything about history, and I guess the conference organizers don't know anything about history, the Federal Reserve was famously planned on Jekyll Island, where a group of bankers and lawmakers and rich people met to decide the future of the U.S. dollar, the Federal Reserve note that the Federal Reserve was destined to create. Destined because they planned it in secret on a secret island, only to be passed on December 23rd, the day before Christmas Eve, the last day that Congress was open, with a minimal group of people. Woodrow Wilson, who was elected president on the agreement that he would sign the Federal Reserve Act, later called it the greatest mistake of his administration, saying that I have sold my children's future into slavery. The ability to create currency is the ability to control a country, and we've given that away today. A paraphrase, of course. But yes, so they thought that would be a good idea, and a lot of people didn't because they're libertarians or they're freedom-thinking people or they don't like cartels, monopolies, and oligolopolies. And they think that, yeah, I went pretty far out on Twitter. I said a lot of stuff about this, but I think I'm right. I think that a CEO meeting to a CEO in private is fine. Many CEOs getting together to work on a project is fine. They're going to announce the project. The project's going to be public. I know this happens all the time. They have Skype. They have Google Hangout. They can do this all they want. But for them to do it in public and to be so exclusionary and to say only 50 and that we're deciding on the 50 and that the rest of you can go fuck yourself, it's a big negative message. And I know a lot of other people have said I've gone too far, and these are just some good people that want to hang out on the beach. I know it's cold where Derek lives. It's cold in New York City. A lot of people want to get out to the beach, and I should be understanding of that, and so I am. You want to get out to the beach. It just seems to me like we just went to Miami, though. It was like a couple weeks ago. I was on the other side of the country in Miami, and there was plenty fine, nice beach there. I guess the more south you go, the more warmer it is. The exclusivity of an island, not having to make your own meals, that can be so difficult. I guess it's really nice. Maybe you don't do your own laundry. But now I can definitely update because I've just read in this CoinDesk article by Pete Rizzo, who I got to meet in Miami. Seemed like a cool guy. And the organizers are now indicating that the event will be filmed by Bitcoin Magazine. And remember, this isn't the old Bitcoin Magazine. This is the new Bitcoin Magazine with Why Bitcoin and that kind of thing. It'll be videotaped and reported on by Why Bitcoins. So how does this make me feel? Well, it makes me feel better in one sense because they're sending a camera crew and a reporter. But it also makes me question this entire thing in another sense because now you've chosen one reporter and one camera crew. So now he's paid, now he's getting personally, he's paid $3,000 for a videographer to cover the entire event. Max Kaiser and Ryan 2-Bit Idiot were unavailable. So Why Bitcoin Magazine has decided to report on the event. And now they're asking for the $3,000. They want a $3,000 donation for the videotaping of the private island Bitcoin event. So there's just a lot of mixed messages there. That's pretty strange. Derek, how do you feel about it being covered by Why Bitcoin Magazine, just one reporter, and now it's suddenly okay?
On this show, I have the exact opposite opinion of you, and let me explain. So when I was talking about this on Free Talk Live the other night, and people can see the whole episode, it's been republished at my blog, derekj.me. And so when I was talking about it, yeah, I introduced it with those undertones of, ooh, it's Bilderberg, it's conspiracy-esque, and people really, on their face.
Jekyll Island is much more apt than Bilderberg. I mean, Bilderberg is exclusive. It's like the 50 members, the cutoff thing. But Jekyll Island, the Federal Reserve, the history of money. If you're interested in the history of money and you're into Bitcoin because you want to change that history, it's such a slap in the face to see people doing this kind of elitist activity, and then to do elitist activity in public. If this was an expose, a truly hidden group, I mean, this is the expose of a publicly hidden group that's basically just slapping the rest of the group in the face. If you're not on this list, if your company's not attending this, you're not part of the cartel. That's a horrible thing to say. I can't believe they'd say that, but that's what they're saying with their actions. But no, you're going to disagree with me.
Yeah, I agree, because these are not politicians, as both the Bilderberg. So you're right. That Jekyll.
Everyone's a politician. All actions are political action. Come on.
Yeah. So corporations are different from politicians. Like CEOs are different from politicians in the sense that they can only derive their wealth from voluntary interactions. So if they provide a good or a service that people like, that's how they get funded. And governments can put a gun to your head, and that's how they get funded. So there's a big difference between the way these two groups operate. And so I see it as nefarious and malicious when politicians gather in secret to plan things about our future. And I don't see it as malicious when CEOs do the same thing. Because I feel like CEOs need protection from those people who can put guns to their heads. Often they have negative opinions of those people, but they can't express them in public. That's why I'm so disappointed that Bitcoin Magazine is going to be covering the event, because I feel like it does two things. First of all, it ruins the privacy of the people who want it, and secondly, it's just shill. It's insider coverage. So, like, I don't ever trust it. So I would rather have nothing than have something that's, like, oh, we chose this person and they're going to cover the event. Like, I don't want any information. I would rather that individuals get to decide how much publicity they want. Bruce Fenton, who organized the event, said that he would be live streaming his entire speeches. He would be publicizing what he does at the event, and that was an option that was left up to all the other guests, so that they could either speak in private or in public, and it would be their choice.
I just think we're getting such a mixed message at this point, that it's private and we don't want the journalists or the press there because they're going to report on it, which will ruin our privacy, which I understand. But now you're having a journalist there, but you handpick the journalist. So again, the correlations to Soviet Russia continue. I almost put a statement up the other day about what he said and compared it to Stalin. That Stalin didn't want the public or the press to be there because they'd be upset that they couldn't register and join the party. Yeah, it's sad. I think there's also, I want to talk about the branding of this. There's a huge mistake in branding here. Let's start with Satoshi. Okay, so Satoshi likes decentralization, decentralized currency, and he famously stopped talking to Gavin Andresen after he went to speak at the Central Intelligence Agency. These are, again, the facts of history. If you're interested in Bitcoin, if you're interested in history, it's only been about 6 years. You can put these facts up. So they're using Satoshi, basically Jesus Christ. They're using his name on their private, centralized, anti-decentralization meeting. So that's just a creepy misbranding. I don't like that.
No, look, what it is, and you're being too, like...
And the second half is Round Table, which is a reference to King Arthur, Sword in the Stones, Rosicrucians, the Secret of Everlasting Life, all of those things, the Holy Grail. Like, you have to know what you're using. Symbol-wise, they've just said, oh, I mean, I don't know, maybe they're applying to join secret groups and they are not interested in the Bitcoin community and they prefer their own secret groups, and that's what they're saying to us. That's been the branding. So
what it's about, okay? There's big names who go to these conferences, like you said, at Miami, and they're busy all day, all the time when they're not at these conferences, working on their developing their products. And then when they are at these conferences, They are always having their ears.
Well, and don't leave out that at these conferences, they already have a well-publicized yet private supper club of these CEO type individuals where they meet up and do whatever they want. I mean, this is already happening, I guess, is one part of it. So, and the community should know that. If you didn't know that there's a group of supper clubs, there it is. It's on video. It's on the internet. You can timestamp this.
I'm aware.
Tom's telling me. I'm not invited, but it's the thing.
I would like to say a few things without being interrupted. Okay,
Good luck.
these people who are working so hard developing their different goods and services for the Bitcoin community are having their ears pulled to the side at these Bitcoin conferences by everyone, including you and me, who are independent journalists, and we pull these people and ask them tough questions on the spot. I think that if I were one of these CEOs and developers, I would want to be able to not collude, but speak privately with other developers in the space and speak honestly without fear that there are going to be people putting microphones in my face and reprinting what I'm saying. If I were, see, I'm very honest about how I feel about regulators. I don't like them. I'm an anarchist and I don't pay taxes. That's intentional. I don't support their wars, and I can't, with good conscience, support what they do financially. So I've already made my stake in the ground, but there are people who have much more money than I do who the IRS would prefer to go after. Not really me, but people who are developing huge products and who are working with major companies. If they were to speak as honestly as I do, they would become real targets. And so they need a place where they can speak openly and honestly about what's going on in the world, and this is that opportunity.
I think that that's a very high-minded and hopeful view of what might happen at this conference. And I agree that Bruce Fenton has publicly said that his goal is what you said, to get these CEOs together so that they'll trash on regulators in private with the hopes that he can convince them to trash on regulators in public. That's not exactly what the words Satoshi Roundtable say to me. That's more like a committee to convince CEOs to trash on regulators in public, which he could form such an organization. The Bitcoin Foundation, some people think, could be that kind of an organization, or it could just be a support mechanism for developers. No one really knows what seems to be going on with that organization. And Bruce Fenton was running for a seat on the Bitcoin Foundation board, a so-called democratically elected position by a paying public. And I suppose he's still running for that democratic position, although I don't know why, when he could just invite 50 of his closest friends to a Caribbean island in secret to discuss everything. It seems like he should take care of business there. But yeah, it's just a thing that happened.
I don't see anything malicious in people getting together and being semi-public about their intentions. There's nothing malicious in that. They can't force anyone to do anything. And by the way, they can't really change Bitcoin at this point. I mean, it's not like the same thing as with the dollar, where there are a small group of people who actually have the power to mint this currency. That's not the case with Bitcoin. So they can't have the same sorts of controls that politicos and bankers can have over the dollar.
I still think that we're looking for a strategy of vertical integration and the creation of monopolies. If you look at the Rockefeller monopoly, it didn't start out with them owning the service stations, owning the refineries, and owning the oil fields, and owning the methods of shipping the oil. You build out to that. So the first thing you say is you have a Bitcoin ecosystem with various different companies. You have this company that does payments, this company does tips, and this company's a bank. And they all do different things, right? But if you start meeting together, you're like, maybe we could just work together. Why do we need to be different companies? Maybe we could be Bitcoin Incorporated, and we'd have one leader like Al Capone marching around the table with a baseball bat. And that's one of the ways that this could go.
Companies use services. There's a difference, and there's nothing inherently evil with companies cooperating.
Well, unless they decide to eliminate competition through monopolies and oligolopolies and use that to charge higher prices. At the end of the day, the consumer will pay.
There's no way that CEOs can create a monopoly without politicians, and no politicians have made that list of 50.
That's truly unfortunate that they didn't make the list. We'll just have to let them in the side door. I'm sure they'll be. That's the other thing. How do we know that this isn't just a whole thing going down? And that's When you meet this way, when you disallow the public, when you disallow independent journalism, and it's also sad for Bitcoin Magazine and why Bitcoins, because they've gotten an exclusive here, but they've also kind of been exposed as a possible media front. How can we really trust what they're going to say to us now that they are the exclusive single partner? It seems like, I don't know, New York Times, Fortune magazine, Forbes, not Fortune, but Forbes, maybe someone like Kashmir Hill, I don't know, a trusted member of the community would have been preferred probably.
There aren't regulators there because of some of the names in attendance. One, Bitcoin Jesus, who was a target of the federal government in the U.S., Bruce Fenton, of course, who's holding the event, Paige Freeman, Jason King.
These are all people who have put their names on the line. They better turn out okay.
Jeffrey Tucker. Yeah, all of these people are not people who are going to secretly decide to abandon their principles and say, oh, I can make a lot more money working with regulators. These are people who have already put their money, their freedom, and...
It's not really a question of working with regulators. It's, do they want to form a monopoly? What is the quickest and most efficient path to profit? And that's to end and crush competition through cooperation. And this is that cooperation.
If they wanted a monopoly, first of all, they would keep it to 5 people or fewer, and they wouldn't make it 50 people where there's a bigger chance of someone breaking the collusion, because that's how natural monopolies always end.
Smaller groups can cut off from the herd. We're not going to be able to watch them at all times. It's not a public event, and we never watch them at all times anyway. But still, this is where that starts.
It's already too many people to be a monopoly. The people have too much integrity, and they've already made themselves public. You forget that Jekyll Island was a private gathering that happened on a train, and we don't even know the names of the people in attendance. These people we know.
Yes, this time we know. But what will the results be?
The results will be more transparency. We can follow what these people do. They're all on Twitter. We can follow them around with video cameras. We can interview any one of them. And I don't see what you're afraid of, that they're going to provide so many goods and services with each other and they're going to cooperate and make a lot of money. What's evil about that?
I think that the evil comes when you consider if you're the 51st person on this list. If you're the company that wasn't invited or couldn't attend because you didn't make the cut, you're now outside of the cartel. The cartel is operating in ways that we don't know. Well, that's the difference between competition and cartels and monopolies and oligopolies and controlled markets. One of them is a marketplace of competition and ideas, and the other is crony capitalism or Soviet control. And will that happen? Is that too far? I don't know, but this is how it starts. This is how it starts.
It's almost like you haven't heard anything that any of these speakers have ever said in their lives. I mean, have you heard Jeffrey Tucker or Bruce Fenton speak? Have you heard Eric Voorhees and Roger Ver speak? Have you heard what they say about the government and about collusion and crony capitalism and about how Bitcoin could provide an end to that whole system? An opportunity to escape from crony capitalism and enter a world of truly free markets?
I hear that, and then I hear that they're meeting on a private island with no press, no journalism, and no public.
And what's bad about that?
What are they going to meet on the private? Sunlight is the best disinfection. Like, there's no reason to hide good actions. Good actions need not be done in secret. Why is there darkness? That's what Bitcoin's about. That's why it's so shocking to see them do this in the face of so many libertarians and crypto anarchists and cyberpunks and cypherpunks and whatever word you want to use. We are the people who say, what about a trustless money system? What about a decentralized money system? How about a system where you don't have to trust the credit card or when you pay online? That's Bitcoin. Well, now we have to trust all of these people who are working together at this secret meeting to deliver us the system that's different than credit cards, who are already working together at the secret meeting. It just seems like they're copying the existing financial system. They're not building a new democratic system where people are invited and it's open and public like at a Bitcoin conference. They're copying the old system. They are becoming elitists by their actions. It is their actions which we see.
But Thomas, we're joined by Frank, who's on via Skype at BitcoinTalkShow. Go ahead, Frank.
Hi guys, I like the conversation so far. I agree with your concerns somewhat, but you have to be a bit more realistic about what could they possibly do to Bitcoin itself. I mean, there's not much they can do, and what power they have is based in the already controlled government's corporate world, which is, owned by much bigger people than they are. So I don't think it's as problematic as you would have us believe.
Yeah, when you say you, you're talking about Thomas, right?
He
Yeah.
means me, and it's fine. It's probably just the historical echo. It's just so much like Jekyll Island, the secret island, the round table King of Arthur references. I mean, these are, it's just the way they chose to couch it is a very creepy and elitist way. And if that's how they want to act and that's how they want to run this thing, then that's their choice. They are the leaders of Bitcoin. But do they have to be the rulers of Bitcoin too? They have to be the kings? I guess
Don't you
so.
think people should have privacy? Aren't people entitled to that?
It's not just privacy, it's like they've built an organization and what is the goals of that organization and why are they excluding people? It's the exclusion. It's
Well,
exclusionary.
I mean, you and I should be able to have a private dinner and not have some reporter show up, right?
I suppose. I'm not sure.
So why are they not entitled to the same thing?
I think that this time they chose to announce their private dinner in public.
Yeah, but
And then they said that no one could come except for these 50 companies.
it's
It
good
seems like, are there only 50 companies in Bitcoin? Are there only 50 people in Bitcoin?
in secret.
Well, no, it implies that if they get enough blowback from doing it in public, then next time they do it in secret, then next time we get leaked notes after the fact. This is the time where we know about it beforehand, and we can say, do you care about the Bitcoin community? Do you care about the libertarians or the crypto anarchists or the cypherpunks or the people who built this thing? Basically, the coders, right? I want to speak to the coders who don't trust people because they don't trust people because they know they can download your entire hard drive. They know they can scan your entire database. They can search through your Facebook results. Like, if they get control of your computer, they can do anything they want to you. These are the people who know about trust and who probably wouldn't meet on a secret island. Do you remember the time that the heads of Linux met on a secret island to plan Linux? I don't remember that. It seems like they seem to meet in public and have open source and software, and they exchange comments on GitHub. But I guess they'd be better off on a secret private island where they don't have to cook their own meals because it's so difficult to
No,
cook food and do laundry. So.
no crime, Thomas. All you're saying is it's creepy that they want privacy, and I disagree with you. People are entitled to privacy. We've got George on the line. George, go ahead with your thoughts. Go ahead, George.
Yeah, tell me.
Yep.
Um, Hello from Grace. Is there any Grace here?
What's on your mind?
Nothing yet.
Yeah, this is a talk show, so go ahead and talk.
Oh,
All right, he hung up. That was the right thing to do. Hey, Blake Anderson, go ahead.
All right, Blake, so did I go too far? Should we just say nothing? Obviously, I mean, I know I went a little too far, but again, that's part of the Mad Bitcoin's persona. It's part of a carnival barker. It's part of a, like, we can, kind of satire things, make fun of things. We can be a little light about things. But, Blake, do you think they'll be drinking blood at this conference? Will it be the blood of babies?
Well, yeah, I mean they're gonna be chugging baby's blood, but who's not doing that? I mean the kids these days, they're hip to the baby blood drinking. No, I mean I think I can really see both sides to this issue. I mean I can see wanting privacy, and especially if you are wanting to innovate in a space, you want to confer with your peers to create real regulation as it should be. But at the same time, we're in a deeply captured system, and Jekyll Island and all that stuff has some really negative connotations and stuff. So I think that it would be an actually great opportunity for the two halves of the community that support each side to have some kind of a debate or a roundtable talking about the benefits and the drawbacks, and try to come to some kind of amicable conclusion where there can be agreement between the decentralization radicals and maybe some of the maybe as Thomas would say the money figures that are getting involved in the technology that's supposed to be fundamentally decentralized in peer-to-peer, and that doesn't gel in many people's book with a private meeting on an island. So I mean, I can really see both sides to this one. It would be interesting to hear them go down to the mat.
Blake, do you believe that you and I should be able to have a private dinner without Thomas coming in with his microphone?
Yeah, I definitely do, and I think that that's a good argument. But I think that there are some areas of gray possibly when we're going to be representing corporations that have an interest, maybe more so than individuals, on influencing something that wasn't built by us. There's a possibility of negative externalities that come from collusion in economic policy or behavior.
I would like to hear Thomas elucidate the negative outcomes that can come out from this. I mean, what practical things can they do to hurt Bitcoin proper? Can you explain anything like that?
I'm not sure they can hurt the protocol. I'm looking for more just monopolistic practices. Like if company A is going to partner with company B, C, and D to knock out company E and F from the space. It just seems very questionable when they all get together with no purpose. Groups like that tend to find a purpose. And or maybe competitive practices to keep new people out of the business, a way to flow venture capital to existing companies, not to new companies. It just seems as soon as you start forming cartels, I start wondering who are you excluding? I mean, the big names we've seen so far, the Overstock CEO Patrick Byrne was either not invited or not on the list or not attending. MadeSafe seems to be left off or not invited. This group seems to favor Ethereum. Anthony DeOrio, Bitcoin Magazine, Why Bitcoin, Decentral TV, all these people working together. It just seems like a boys' club is developing. And we're in a rare occasion where it's been made public and we have the chance to comment on it. I haven't mentioned the supper clubs before because I do think that they have a right to private dinners. And I didn't think it was that much to have a private dinner at each of the Bitcoin conferences. That seems kind of logical.
Yeah, and I think the question was more referring to like objective examples, and I think that recent history points to the collusion that was involved in the Mt. Gox collapse, wherein there was arbitrage cycles that were clearing against Gox in a way that was unsustainable because they had the highest price point for Bitcoin because of the Willy bot trading. The people that were on the inside of whatever went on there would have a lot of ability to collude and make money, and that kind of a situation is extended when you have companies that are not running directly on the blockchain but that are running token substrates, or an accounting system that is not on the blockchain. It's not an immutable ledger accounting system. It can be fudged, so to speak. There's latitude there for corruption. And then when multiple companies that are running a token substrate meet and talk together about possible market collusion in the Bitcoin space with various different aims, I'm not saying that that's what they're doing at all, but that would be a fairly major risk to the stability and solvency and liquidity, whatever word you want to say, of Bitcoin, certainly between now and the next block halving. So I don't think that these people are malfeasant, but that would be one of the types of objective risks that people are worried about.
Overreaching all of this is the fact that Bitcoin is a very small market and that the price could be controlled. And that the ways to control the price would be to get a large group of people who have a large number of Bitcoins together and start meeting and start making agreements. And we don't know that that's happening. Certainly it's a long shot. But in a very small market, the larger the monopoly, the easier it is to control things.
What is wrong with
there's one
agreements?
point I wanted to make earlier, is that you're ignoring the real danger to the Bitcoin ecosystem, is that Obama can drone strike this party and just kill everyone instantly, and then where would we be then?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think anybody's going to contest that we have extremely grotesque behavior from the morbidly corpulent, vicious government.
I would just add that I wouldn't just worry about Obama. From a security standpoint, I would hope, and I'm just saying this publicly, I don't want this to happen, but knock on wood, but I'd hope they'd have security at this conference. There are a lot of people that presumably have access to a lot of Bitcoins, and they should take adequate steps for their security, pirates and so forth in the Caribbean, right?
That's a good point. We don't want any bad things happening to people. And I can sense, your intentions and your motivation here, Thomas, is good. Like, you want good things for these people, for the world, for everyone. I think the point where we disagree is that I don't see monopolies as inherently bad. Like, I know that monopolies can exist and they can price gouge and they can do some horrible things. But when that happens in a free market, like something like with Bitcoin, competition can come along and make that go away. So natural monopolies rise up and then they fall. And then the same thing happens with collusion, where when people collude, there's an incentive to break the collusion, right? So the person who breaks the collusion has that natural incentive. They're going to get a bunch of customers in the short term, and then they screw over all their friends.
Well, no, I agree. The cypherpunk argument, though, is that there's a danger zone wherein you have a captured government, and then you have technology that comes along. When that technology comes along, when you have a captured government, and it's used in such a way to subjugate people, that's a risky situation. So I think that the cypherpunk movement is worried that some of this technology will be used to make a quick buck in a top-down approach to help the current system do things that they shouldn't. And I believe that is, I don't believe that those people are doing that, but I do believe that to some extent we should be wary of that situation. It is a scary situation to ponder.
No.
Also, we have to take into account their response to our questions, mocking.
Well, we need to let Derek have
satire.
A word too, though.
Well, but I mean, I want to mention that when we asked them questions about this, they seemed to get upset. They were upset that we were implying that they're like Jekyll Island. They're upset at the CoinDesk article, which implied that they're like Bilderberg. The Bilderberg idea spread to Alex Jones and the Prison Planet, and they took notice of this conference as well. It seems like they also may have drawn this on themselves with the exclusivity. And their reaction was very upset on Twitter. Bruce Fenton was mad at me all day. He asked for my name 5 times. I'm not sure why he'd do that. It doesn't affect my qualifications. It just increases the chances of someone doxing me, which I hope he wouldn't want. I wouldn't do to him. It's the internet out there. We all have the right to speak. Pseudonyms, pen names are very common.
But not for I see. So you value your own privacy, at least for that. At least you have some principle somewhere. Well, why would
I don't work for a major. I'm not the CEO of a major corporation making decisions that affect an entire industry. When you are acting as a CEO, you're representing the corporation and the corporate interests. And although he said he didn't invite,
you got to give Derek a chance to rebut here a little bit.
Yeah. Why would a group of people who want to take advantage of the government having total control over an economy with this new emerging technology, why would they invite someone like Jeffrey Tucker? Now, I was present when Jeffrey Tucker was introduced to Bitcoin. It was at Liberty Forum in 2012 when the Lamassu guys had developed their first Bitcoin vending machine. And it was still in shackles. You can see the pictures on CNET from 2012. It was in February. So why would they invite someone who invented Liberty.me, someone who speaks about...
I totally agree with you, Derek, but this is trust by association. Like, that's like a bit much to ask in the strictly computer science terminology of what they're going to be doing as far as the market and the code and stuff,
The bad person.
We also can't guarantee that Jeffrey Tucker will be present at all of the meetings, that there won't be subgroups, and we can never guarantee that. But yeah, we just can't say anything.
Why put them on the list of 50? What benefit could it possibly have if you want to have a cabal?
Well, again, they could just be excluded from the cabal meetings. The cabal meetings could happen at the cabana next door, and they could keep Jeffrey at the good cabana. We don't know that, but it's impossible.
I don't know that people are necessarily saying that it's a cabal, but people want some kind of accountability to the developers and things like that, because it seems like the money is meeting without any of the core developers, and that makes people nervous. I'm not saying that I'm among that camp or that party, but I think it's a discussion that would be, interesting to hear.
It is clear there don't seem to be that many developers invited.
Can I make 2 points and then I'll exit the conversation?
What's up?
Well, first of all, I want us all to admit that as human beings, we are all rightfully so suspicious and skeptical and afraid of this kind of collusion given the history of the world. And but we also have to admit that is the origin of our fears, this suspicion and this history. But we should also be hopeful because Bitcoin is what has allowed us to reclaim our, financial freedom, and so there's nothing that these people can do to really take that away from us. And even if they tried to, you should be happy that that's not possible. No matter, even in the short term, if something bad happens, it's the long term that's going to win out.
Amen.
Amen.
Thanks for the call,
I
Brett.
totally agree. Totally agree.
Well, my point, and this will be my final point, there are too many good people I know on this list. It just is not possible that they're doing something evil. It's just, that's my last 2 cents.
All right, I think we should go through question and answers while we're still on the topic. Dan Gold says that he agrees with the sentiment of the caller who says that if this island meeting can bring down Bitcoin, then Bitcoin is not what we thought it is. I don't think this is a big deal. And I think that should be a good attitude. My personal goal was to try to not talk about this and try to kind of back it off. I get a little excited. You read about a Bitcoin Bilderberg retreat. They're meeting exactly 50 people in a round table related King Arthur Island. Yeah, it's kind of creepy. I just get, I want to tell people about it. Dan Gould says that he thinks the incentives of most on the list is to have the Bitcoin price go to the moon, whatever that is, and that the ownership of Bitcoin will diverge naturally if Bitcoin works like Satoshi intended. I'm not sure on the price. I mean, for a lot of people, depending on your position, if you get out into fiat and then the price goes to 20 and you get back in, then it could go to the moon. I don't know where they're going to take the price. We can never be sure, especially now with shorts in the game. People can be shorting the price of Bitcoin, betting that the price will go down. It's complicated, but that's basically it. Dan also says there's no such thing as a natural monopoly. The monopolies we know and love are backed by government guns. I think a lot of people would agree with that.
Yeah, I was going to say that same thing. Thank you for remembering to bring that up.
Natural monopoly is theoretical.
Theoretical. All right. And then Dan also says, leaders of Bitcoin, I think I still own my private keys. As soon as Bitcoin becomes a real monopoly backed by guns, I'm out of Bitcoin. So again, we are watching for this. Dan has a point where he'll leave Bitcoin. So we need to watch for that. Satoshi had a point where he'll leave Bitcoin. It was the CIA. A lot of people were upset when I think it was Gavin or one of the other major developers was going to speak to the Council on Foreign Relations, which again, these are, unfortunately, this is where Satoshi's round table and the King Arthur references are taking us, but we don't want to go there. But Council on Foreign Relations, that's a thing. You can Google it. And Tony P says, even if they're trying to get their feet under the table and push others out of the market, who's forcing you to use the services they sell? I think that would be the libertarian argument. It is voluntary that you use a service like Coinbase or BitPay.
Well, it's true, but
it is also it's negative if you're going to stop people from.
Yeah, that's a double-sided sword, because it's like, yes, the libertarian thing would be to boycott, to warn other people that there's a data honeypot or something that you disagree with. So yes, at the same that doesn't though encourage me to stop speaking what I believe. You know what I mean? That argument always kind of strikes me as only half of the entire consideration that would have to be made there.
We do need to take actions. We can't be like the hobbits who stay home in Hobbiton, because the outside world will affect Hobbiton as well. So, but I think Derek's right. We should move on to another topic.
Well, our mics keep maxing out Derek. Let's see what he has to say.
Go ahead, Derek.
That's it. I was just saying, are you guys ready for a segue? Because I am. Here's some new project. I got a video to share with you guys. Just 15 seconds. Take a listen.
Want to help protect yourself? What? Want to help protect yourself? Okay. And further the cause of police accountability? Yeah. Then join copblock.org protection today.
Yeah, that's CopBlock Protection, and it just launched today over at copblock.org/protection. They are.
I got an email.
Well, I should say we are accepting Bitcoin because I am a part of CopBlock Protection. It is a program that offers a service to its sponsors for different levels of membership. Essentially, what you get is a specialist who can cover stories of police abuse if you have an encounter with police. I've got another video that can explain a little bit more, and this one's just a little bit longer. It's 2 minutes. You guys buckle in.
I think it's good, and I like that short video too. I thought that was a fun way to sell it.
Thank you.
Are you tired of the ever-growing police state? Wish you could do more to curb police abuse? If so, then I'd like to tell you about Cop Block Protection. We're a team of dedicated professionals who work to generate and bring media attention to your story. When you're not using Cop Block Protection, know that your membership funds will be used to further the Strike the Root message, badges don't grant extra rights. Fact of the matter is that any of us could be stopped, questioned, or approached by police at any time. It could go like this.
Am I free to go?
You're free to go.
Thank you.
Or it could go like this. Imagine the peace of mind Cop Block Protection members have knowing that if they have a police encounter, a qualified Cop Block Protection specialist will be there to assist them in sharing their story to millions via copblock.org. For more information, go to copblock.org/protection. Get signed up and explore the advantages of each level of coverage. You're just one click away from peace of mind, and that's priceless.
Yeah, so I don't want to make this too long of a commercial, but basically I did start a new project and it just launched today. I'm very excited about it. It is called Cop Block Protection, and you can find out more at copblock.org/protection. So we accept Bitcoin, and the idea is to help protect you, to provide some kind of peaceful remedy for the rampant problem of police abuse in this country. I hope it can help you.
Well, and I like the idea because it's a membership, so you have people subscribing monthly and they're getting a service. They have this protection if they have trouble. Now, again, Dan Gould says in the comments, he says, trying to block cops can get you beat up or worse. And I think that is part of this, is that filming a police officer could, escalate a situation, so do so at your own risk. It's up to you whether you want to do that. But if you are going to do that, you should film it. And if you are going to film it, you should put it online. And if you put it online, this would be a great way to draw attention to that video and to network with other people who also want to document these abuses. And I hope that there are less abuses. We have body cameras coming up. We have all kinds of laws and problems with those cameras and cops turning them off, footage not being public, etc. But I think we'll work that out. I think hopefully we can solve this police brutality problem. And I like the membership idea. I think maybe the World Crypto Network could do a similar membership, although CopBlock clearly does provide a service. But all kinds of activism-type organizations, I think that you could subscribe to and then help fund their activism. So I think that's a cool model.
Yeah, that's the idea. If there's no one who needs help at the moment, I work to produce different kinds of videos that highlight what to do in a police encounter to keep yourself safe. And the reality is, yeah, while it is dangerous to block cops, there are already people doing it, and they don't have this sort of protection. They don't have a media network surrounding them so that when they do end up in jail or they are slapped with felony charges, sometimes for something as simple as video recording, they don't have a way to spread that message to millions of people. Well, copblock.org is that platform. So anyway, I think it's a cool idea, and I hope that it brings more peace to the world.
It's nothing but felony wiretapping is what it is. But I'm not really. I'm just kidding.
Well, the founder of copblock.org has been slapped multiple times with felony wiretapping charges, and that's just the reality. When you're filming police and they don't like it, they can charge you with pretty serious crimes, and then you have to spend lots of money fighting them.
And to call filming a public official the felony wiretapping is just like my face melts off and like the goo that was my face explodes. It's just the most ridiculous thing I could possibly conceive of.
It does fly in the face of the word public official, right? Yeah, public. We've got a couple more comments. John is unable to join us because his stream is too slow, but he's going to watch the recording. So hello to John in Thailand watching the recording. Very cool. Hey, we've also got Dan Gould who says, getting beat up on the side of the road is not for me. I'll deal it in court where the guns are subdued a bit. It's never someone's choice when they end up in court. And he has a good point. Activism is not for everyone. I think Derek and the people that do Cop Block are activists, and they know that they are taking certain risks to accomplish certain goals. And so it is a direct action. It's not just a. But if you do see a cop beating someone up on the street, pull out your smartphone and film it. Don't allow it to just happen and then upload it to copblock.org and join this network, and we can spread the word about police brutality and try to stop it. I mean, unfortunately, the filming of horrible things to African Americans this year did not stop it from happening, but it did enrage and inform people, and hopefully it will lead to some change.
It doesn't always lead to the best outcome, but the reality is the more eyeballs are on a story, the more likely police are to face actual justice. So if they don't end up on the news, then they probably won't end up before a court.
Film everything.
And it'll point to a bigger issue too, because the larger issue is also that we have selective enforcement of laws because we have way too many laws on the books. I mean, way back in the days of ancient Rome, we knew the more numerous the laws, the more corrupt the state, but we seem to have forgotten that. So what we really need is we need cops, risking their lives, stopping people and searching them, like when they're suspected of murder and things, and not of a victimless crime, and not in the drug war and things that are the police should have no business in dealing with, because even just dealing with the criminal elements of society would be a lot of work and be really dangerous. And when you load the police down with enforcement of victimless crimes and other things go on the back burner that maybe aren't as lucrative for the department to go after, that's a giant issue. So I think that the first step in starting to reform the police system is to start to be able to have accountability for police and departments that are unfortunately overworked and overstressed, and sometimes tempted into selective enforcement. And the problem is very, very large, and this first step is desperately important. So I really in full support of the project.
I think this is also a good time to transition and talk about prisons in general. I was talking to a friend of mine who's recently become a guard at a prison, and I was talking to Derek last week about why we have laws and why we have society, and how basically we're taking time away from people that break the rules of society, hurting people. Well, okay, the government. I don't know. I conjecturalize it as it's a teacher thing, I think. But
I don't do that.
It's interesting to see that from the other perspective as a guard, and what being a prison guard is, and how they've separated the groups of humans into the different groups of sexes so that they can't breed, perhaps to prevent violence as well, and what kind of interesting societies they've created within these prison walls, and how there's an economic system. Cigarettes are illegal, alcohol is illegal, marijuana is illegal. They're trading these things underground. He told me about a new card that they're using that's a debit card, where you can have your friend in the outside world put money on it, then there'll be money on your card, and then you'll say, oh, the inmate has paid you money, and you can transfer debts around. Just what an incredible marketplace has been created inside of these prison places, and what limited freedoms they're offering. And I think this is a good segue. We don't have the link up yet, but we are hearing reports via Twitter that Ross Ulbricht has been found guilty of all charges. These are early reports. We're still looking for corroboration, but this is what we're hearing via Twitter. This is completely unconfirmed, but I wanted to bring it to you. This is via Tony P in the question and answers here, so thank you, Tony, for keeping us updated. And we're going to be looking for a link, if someone has a link. And
thelibertybeat.com is doing live coverage. So, breaking Ross Ulbricht found guilty on all charges by John Bush. He's been reporting there for weeks.
All right, so it is confirmed. We have thelibertybeat.com confirming reports on Twitter that Ross Ulbricht has been found guilty on all charges. So let that sink in for a couple minutes and seconds there. We were just talking about prison and commissaries. Obviously, if you've benefited from Bitcoin or the Silk Road, you might want to write Ross Ulbricht in the future. You might want to send him a few bucks so that he can buy a donut or something at the commissary. This is unfortunate, sad news. A lot of people thought that this was pretty much what was going to happen. Let's go and we're going to read the article from John Bush here. After deliberating for around 2 hours, the jury in the Ross Ulbricht trial came back with a verdict of guilty on all charges. After the verdict was read, the Ulbricht's family was in tears, and supporters in the audience yelled, "Ross is a hero," and wished him farewell as he was escorted out of the courtroom. The verdict comes after 3 weeks of evidence presented by the government linking Ross Ulbricht to the Dread Pirate Roberts, the Silk Road's main administrator. Ross will be sentenced on May 15th, 2015 in New York City. So, here we go. Well, the only point that it ever looked good trial-wise, if we want to talk about the nuts and the bolts, was the Carpellis defense. The Carpellis defense was a strong red herring, if you want to say, that could have distracted the jury. It was thrown out almost immediately the next day by the judge. The defense in this case, I read an analysis yesterday. I don't have it on my screen right now, but it said that basically the defense was presented from giving the case they wanted to give. They wanted to bring in Bitcoin expert Andreas Antonopoulos and another expert to testify on Bitcoin and addresses, and maybe build up the idea that the real Dread Pirate Roberts had sent this money to Ross to defame him, to frame him. That was not available to the defense. They weren't able to bring in the witnesses they wanted because the judge refused them. It's possible that could be used in a mistrial or a future appeal, but it's likely. I mean, I don't have the list of the years that they give for this, but it was 35 to life, right? I mean, we're pretty much looking at the book here, right? You guys on the sentence?
An opportunity to appeal, and there are 2 opportunities for appeal. So the court above this one, and then the Supreme Court.
So that will be an option depending on, of course, funding and the quality of the argument. You have to have a very impressive argument to reach the Supreme Court or to reach a higher level.
I think it was a mistrial. I think that every piece of evidence that could be used was, or every argument that the defense had was thrown out improperly by a judge that was on a power trip and was going for a prosecutionary slam dunk. I mean, we have a 99% federal conviction rate. Are you serious, people? Like, nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. We have a 99% federal conviction rate. Come on, people, wake up.
Well, that's the problem with juries. I'm sorry, Blake, but the judge didn't make this decision. The jury did. And the reality is most people just say, well, he wouldn't be in handcuffs and he wouldn't be here if the government weren't charged him with a real crime. So
I agree, but the judge allowed and did not allow certain arguments to be made, did they not?
That's true. The judge threatened the jury if the protesters like me continued outside. The people talking about jury nullification, that would have possibly been a game changer. It has been in the past. Another game changer that the judge affected was that she didn't allow Andreas Antonopoulos, our friend, to testify. And that could have really thrown things off, because we were talking about this for 2 hours on Monday night's Free Talk Live. How, okay, if these, because the prosecution landed, they finished their argument talking about these murder for hire charges, and they're so flimsy because it's all government allegations. They're like, oh, we've got pictures of these people, oh, just trust us, they got deleted, but you don't need to look at any of the forensic evidence. Okay, I've been in trials before where a farmer was on trial for selling raw milk, and they had a forensic scientist taking his hard drive apart and showing us what was on it. Now, they didn't do that for the Silk Road trial. Are you fucking kidding me? I'm sorry, but like, how much are we going to just take the government's word for shit? It just seems like they were throwing him through the mud, saying, oh yeah, and oh, by the way, he hired people to murder other people, with no evidence. They just say it, and then the people believe it.
It was a farce from setup to trial. It was farce from the way that he was entrapped by the government to the trial that was a farce. I mean, it was an absolute farce of a trial.
He could have testified, though. I'm a little bit mad at Ross. Like, come on, man. You should have testified. You should have gone up on the stand and connected with that jury and said, I didn't hire anyone to murder anybody, and if I did, you could see it on the blockchain. Show me where it happened on the blockchain. If you've got evidence that I did this, if you're going to bring this up in court, show me where it happened. Show me the transaction logs. Oh, what do they got? They've got some spreadsheet. Oh, okay, yeah, a spreadsheet can't just be faked by the feds. Yeah, conversations can't be faked by the feds. Show me on the blockchain where it happened. That's why they didn't have Andreas explain what Bitcoin is to the jury. He could have explained that if this really is true, where's the evidence? I want to see it.
For the jury to convict on a lack of evidence, as there clearly was on some of the charges, is just really disheartening as well.
Well, from the beginning of the trial, I had called for jury nullification. I felt that this was a political trial as part of the drug war as started by Richard M. Nixon against the American people, and that the only route to reach the jury would be to hope for one person on the jury that rejects the drug war. President Obama has rejected the drug war. Many have called for the rescheduling of marijuana and even for other things like heroin to switch to a more addiction recovery-based program rather than a punishment-based program. Ross operated an open and free market that allowed violence to be taken out of the cannabis industry. They were able to trade large amounts of cannabis for large amounts of money without bringing their guns. That's a revolutionary new idea that he presented to the people, or the Dread Pirate Roberts presented to the people. I don't want to paint him or anything, but that's the information we're being given by the legal system.
I have already sent Ross some money, but I'm going to re-up my donation to him right now. I want this to continue. I want him to have enough to take this to the next level. So I'm going to be sending him some Bitcoin. I hope you at home will join me.
And I mean, remember the basic axiom of this case is he made a truly free market. And if you're, left wing, right wing, liberal, conservative in this country, in the United States of America, both of our political parties are founded on the cornerstone of a staunch defense of free markets. Now he's going to spend his life in jail because he made a truly free market. Think about how disgusting and perverse and backward and moronic that is. Just think about how terrible that is.
And even as the RT article shows, with Derek and his sign again here, web hosting is not a crime. There's now a definite thread over the industry. There's a hush now that if you are hosting websites for other people and they're accused of crimes, you may now be guilty of those crimes. Facebook, Google, other large providers should be worried. The results of this trial could spread to other trials. So if you're looking at this QR code on the screen, you could donate now to Ross Ulbricht, and I'm going to do that. Got a couple bucks in here. Doesn't work. Maximum's too high.
Nice and easy too, because the address is 1 Ross 5 something, so you can check to make sure it's right because it says 1 ROSS.
And Derek, can you go ahead and click on it or bring it up on the blockchain as well so we can see if people are donating? I always like that about Bitcoin. You can turn anything into a fundraiser, and look right there. People, how much did they donate, Derek?
Yeah, people are donating right now with us. In total, it looks like this address has received almost $150,000 in Bitcoin. Now, of course, that price has fluctuated a lot in the last month. Or last year rather, but it looks like he's received several donations as of this announcement.
So the people are responding. They are hoping for, like Derek said, perhaps a continuation of this trial, an appeal to a higher court, maybe a different look at the evidence.
The problem is, though, that he didn't testify and that Andreas wasn't allowed to speak. The first judge has a lot of impact on the rest of the case because when you appeal a trial, you start from the very beginning, and you can only bring forward the evidence that you had the first time. You can't bring in new evidence, can't bring in new witnesses. It has to be, you start over from the beginning and do the whole thing over again for a new judge and a new jury. But you can't bring in new evidence. It can't be a completely new trial in that sense. So their hands are a little bit tied. They're going to have to stick with the same arguments that they've been using. So we're not going to have any surprises that come out of this. I'm really disappointed that he didn't testify. I mean, gosh, like what would he have to lose at this point? What could he have lost by?
He was probably advised not to testify, right?
I think they were. I'm not sure they were going to let him. Wasn't there like he wanted to testify, but they wouldn't let him? I haven't been watching closely the last few days.
He said he wasn't going to testify on Monday, and she was like, "All right, well, I'll let you change your mind. If you want to change your mind, you can do that by tomorrow." And they don't do that in court. I mean, you have to say who your witnesses are going to be like weeks ahead of time, and this judge almost tried to give it to him.
It's strange. The usual result in court cases is if you're innocent, you testify in support of yourself. It's difficult to say in this case. We don't know if he was truly innocent, or if he ran the Silk Road, or Karpelis ran the Silk Road, or if he's completely guilty. But either way, it goes back to how they sold the trial. They didn't sell this trial as a drug war trial. They didn't sell this as an encryption-based trial. They didn't sell this as a freedom of web host type trial. I don't know what they've sold it as. They tried to do the Karpelis defense. They tried to bring in Bitcoin. Their defense was foiled. I wish I had the article up. I tweeted it yesterday, but yeah, the defense was very held back in this case.
Yeah, every single argument that they wanted to make was objected to until basically due process had been thoroughly slaughtered.
And even from the beginning, before the trial, the judge had rejected the Dart versus Craigslist court case, which was an Ohio district court case that basically said that the website Craigslist was a common carrier, and that the people that were trading perhaps drugs, prostitution, etc. on Craigslist was not responsible for their actions. We've seen in this case that the judge certainly rejected that before the trial, saying that if the Silk Road was a common carrier, it would be like a house built with secret hiding places for drugs. She did not. It was very similar to the ISO Hunt case, where ISO Hunt was a torrent website, and they didn't even have any torrents. They were actually searching other torrent websites. But what they did is they created top 10 movies, top 10 music. These categories were seen as an incentive to steal. And that's what the Silk Road website design led the judge to believe, that this was a website designed to sell drugs, not just an open market that happened to be used to sell drugs, even though we can look at the records of things sold there: raw milk, T-shirts, stickers.
Well, that's asinine too, because then you have to argue that spoons have been designed to make me fat, and guns were designed to hurt people, and cars were designed to go fast and crash into shit. Like, it's a non-argument. It's platitudinal. It's like, and it's a tool. I mean, you know what I mean? They are common carriers.
Well, they are holding the designer. They are holding the designer of the tool responsible. It's a bit of a Prometheus situation where he brought fire to man, and man rewarded him, or the gods rewarded him, by strapping him to a rock and having a bird pick out his liver and having it grow back. So, is that happening now? Is this what Satoshi Nakamoto avoided by staying private? Are we seeing the Dread Pirate Roberts dragged into the light? Would we see the same to Satoshi? It's very Ayn Randian when you have someone being punished for making a tool. And I don't like to use that reference. I don't like to enter us into that world. I know you libertarians are still fans, but yes, it is. Very much Henry Reardon. Dread Pirate Roberts did it better. He did the drug market better, and today he's being punished for it.
But he didn't do the criminal market better, and that's one thing we can learn from Ross. Unfortunately, it looks like things are not going to go well for him, and I'm sad about that. But to the Dread Pirate Roberts of the future, I say learn from Ross's mistakes. If you do anything, learn from what he did wrong. What did he do wrong? A few things. He kept.
Start at the beginning, because there's a lot.
Well, he kept unencrypted data on his laptop that pinched his friend, right? His friend had to end up testifying against him because Ross had shitty security. I mean, he was either gonna be. It was like, you're beat, man.
It starts at the. Well, it looks like we lost Blake, but it starts at the beginning when you begin with the end in mind. It seems that when he was very first exploring the idea of setting this network up, he talked about it in public on those blog posts. He used his email in an announcement publishing about the Silk Road when he was trying to publicize it. So he didn't have a separation of publicity. He didn't have a separation of looking for help. He was doing both of those public, and then he went private. So he was kind of doomed from the beginning. The government did allegedly find him through Google searches. But then the other issues for me are large-scale issues. When he starts making a lot of money, he becomes trapped. He can't move the money. It seems that he was selling the money on the Bitcoin meetups in San Francisco at spot price or lower, and that's how he was getting cash. But really, what I hate to say this, as a defensive move, he should have thought about where he was going to end up, and he should have given $1 million in Bitcoin to a lawyer that would accept it in Bitcoin and hold it for him as collateral so that he could then have had truly a stellar legal defense. Much respect to his team. I'm sure they did the best they could, but if you have $1 million, you can buy $1 million worth of lawyers. And even though Bitcoin was a commodity and it was untaxed and it was unclear at the time, I'm certain that lawyers could have written a contract that would have allowed him to put that up. Well, it's fascinating because would it have been considered drug money or part of an illegal group? It's tough to say. There's attorney-client. There's a lot of things in there. But yes, defense money. Put some defense money away up front, or perhaps, I don't want to say funnel, but perhaps donate money to a defense group, and maybe that defense group will defend you afterwards. You have to think about the end if you're going to do such a large civil disobedience project like a open and free, essentially turned into a drug market. So those are the major mistakes that I see. Obviously, the hitman fiasco, he was entrapped, and it's unfortunate. So one should never turn to violence. It also muddied the water as far as him being a truly political figure, something we could get behind and sell because of the hitman distraction. But we're joined by Chris Ellis and Blake Anderson. So let's see what Chris has to say. We've just heard that the Ross Ulbricht has been found guilty on all charges. So Chris, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I just got back from work, and I only just found it out. I saw Julia's tweet earlier on. I'm bitterly disappointed, but I can't say that I'm surprised. I think we kind of knew in our heart of hearts this was going to happen, and so far the only evidence I have is that Ross is a hero. I haven't seen any direct evidence to the contrary yet. He probably single-handedly built one of the most useful, most powerful products in the whole of Bitcoin space outside of Bitcoin itself. This is exactly what Bitcoin was designed to do. These people were voluntarily putting chemicals inside of their body. I don't see what's wrong with that. I think that the whole war on drugs is an internal conflict that the American public and in West generally has with itself, where more than 60% of people will admit to taking drugs, and yet more than 70% of people will then get outraged when it comes to the polling booths, and politicians will exploit that left and right. So it's an internal conflict that we face in this issue about drug taking. So yeah, I mean, I never used the Silk Road myself, but I've spoken to many people who did. In fact, somebody very lovingly, sort of tried to get me into it when I first heard about Bitcoin and showed me through it. And apparently it was a very vibrant community in there. People used to turn up, not even to buy drugs, but just hang out on the forum because they could meet like-minded people there as well. It was a wonderful sense of community. So I don't know. Was there any actual substantial evidence in the end about the hitman thing?
No.
Was there? No.
It was mainly dropped from the prosecution's case. They didn't even really charge him with it, but they never stopped mentioning it in the media. They never stopped using it as a reason why he was not a hero.
Right. So it was prejudicial. So they just used it to prejudice the trial by the looks of it.
On its face, yeah.
And Chris, we were just saying this moments ago, but I'll repeat for you that the prosecution said, yeah, there are these pictures of the dead people that Ross saw, but you can't see them, jury, because they got deleted. And we're not going to bring in some forensic analyst to show you the hard drive and prove that they got deleted. We're just going to say that they got deleted and that they once existed, and you're going to believe that because we're the government. Furthermore, there was a spreadsheet that Ross kept track of who he paid on a Google Docs spreadsheet, for example. It was just some spreadsheet. Okay, if he paid people, it was in Bitcoin. Show me where the transaction log happened. Well, we couldn't have Andreas Antonopoulos get on the stand and explain how Bitcoin works and how there's a universal ledger and everything's on a transaction log. So the jury had no idea that there would be verifiable evidence that Ross sent money somewhere. They just heard, okay, the government says he sent money somewhere, so he did.
Where was he supposed to have sent the money to?
To the hitman.
Oh, I see. Right, but they didn't. All they did was show a spreadsheet that they claimed was his.
Right.
And did he refute that? Did his defense say that wasn't true?
Allegedly, yes, but they couldn't explain to the jury why Bitcoin would make that impossible. How you could prove if he sent money somewhere or not. Like, we all know that, yeah, there's this transaction, and like, we can show people all the transactions of the donations that are being sent to Ross right now. Like, yeah, each of these has a little transaction log, and you can go back and look on every single transaction that's ever happened on the blockchain. But the jury didn't even know about that.
Also, I find it distasteful that he was tried by his own journal. I think that there's obviously an opening here for an encrypted, easy-to-use journaling software that's open source and publicly verifiable to prevent this in the future. I think journaling is important. I think it's very unfortunate that it was used against him. What else do you guys think? Or I'm going to go to the video. We're going to go to the video. Here we are, just a little, perhaps levity, I guess.
We log on together on my favorite site. How could you let this happen? How could you not see the signs? Could have lasted forever. Now the Fed's got your side. How could you not see this coming? How could you not see the light? When I can't sleep at night 'cause my screen glows so bright. I just wanna buy all these drugs on your side. 2 people dead, was that you, Mr. Dread? Now Silk Road's just been shut down. Although we come to the end of the road, now I've no place to go. It's so natural, you supply to me. I know to you, although we come to the end of the road. Now I've no place to go. It's so natural, you supply to me. I know you. Dread, I know you really wanted this. They just don't realize you had a pretty good run for only your first time. Maybe we'll learn together. Maybe another try. Why were you in San Fran first off? Why were you? Why pirate? Why? So the man strikes again, but you know this, I'm sure. Maybe next time you won't be on our shores. 2 people dead, was that you, Mr. Shred? Now Silver just been shut down. Now I know I can't let go, baby. I don't know what I'm gonna do. No more blood. Although we go to the end so no more we now have no place to go. It's so natural, no. I love you.
Yes, a sad time for the pirate Roberts. And we've also got this cartoon that was sent in by Einstein Knows God. And it's a great cartoon. It says, "You realize that your fate will be decided by 12 people who were too stupid to get out of jury service." This thing's still going. But we also have We cannot stop here. Bitcoin Talk Show. This is the most exciting episode ever because we have breaking news via Twitter. The revised Bit license regulations have just been released by Super Nintendo Ben Lawsky. That's right. It's a big legal document, and I'm not sure that we're going to have time to read it live on the air, but we do have read it as submitted by BTC Drac, friend of the show, who is complimented for being so fast. Let's see. It's Joe Co. says, I can already tell that this discriminates against people without fingerprints. He says that the fractional reserves are illegal to the extent a licensee holds or stores. So that sounds good. Fractional reserves are illegal. I don't know how they're going to enforce that. Squid Eye Cuz says, still a joke, goes too far, leaks data all over, defeats the entire purpose of cryptocurrency, might as well use fiat, which seems like the main intention of this. Few will follow, and I doubt it will be enforceable, unless New York decides to police the world. Good show. And again, that's the kind of comment you go to Reddit for. That's a quality comment. So I don't think we're going to be able to read this live on the air. Derek,
I think it's,
Chris, what do you think?
I think it's telling that they, at the very least, they're like, no fractional reserve lending. We know objectively how terrible that is from having done it ourselves for so long. We can't let the new people do fractional reserve lending. We're not going to stop, but we know that we should at least have that be a rule for you guys. I think that's really funny.
Got some definitions here. Not sure.
It's reasonable that they would make a part of cryptocurrency that they had nothing to do with creating illegal. So, fractional reserve, while I find that distasteful personally, and I wouldn't do business with anyone who held a fractional reserve of Bitcoin, it shouldn't be illegal. There shouldn't be consequences of people going to jail for it. It's not criminal. If they're upfront about it and they're open and honest and they say, I just have 10% reserves, then at least they're being honest. There's nothing criminal about that.
On the surface, I agree, but was there giant advertisements that let us know that the banks were leveraged 33-1 in 2008, and that's the kind of the problem with it. I'm not saying that it should be illegal either. I'm just saying it's a huge problem. It's pretty bad, and it's been used against us for so long. It's so funny that they would bring it up.
Why are we still talking about being custodians when we have multi-signature capabilities? Why do you just not become a key sharing platform? Why don't you just look after multi-signature keys? And the customer can have 2 of the keys and you can have 1 of the keys. They keep 1 in the browser and 1 on paper. And then you don't have to take anyone's funds. You can all you're doing is storing some keys on a hard drive. And it can even be encrypted by them. So actually you've got no way of seeing the core data inside of your hard drive. All you're doing is selling server space. That's all you're doing.
Because they want control.
Yeah, because they want control about control. All about control.
There's a reason. They could just use the Coinbase API. They could use multi-sig, like you're saying, with BitGo, or even just write their own. But there's something else out there, and they have to control your.
But where's
coins.
the courage and the creativity gone? I'm designing this app at the moment, and I'm really grateful to all the people that reached out to my secret project tweet that I left sort of out there in the open, like Bilderberg, just kind of out there. Thought I'd set up like a little kind of undercover clandestine sort of group of people, self-selected, mind you, and not powerful in the slightest. I'm not in any way powerful, but reaching out to me and using my app that I've been developing with my friend Leo and saying this is really this is properly decentralized, right? Like you're doing this the way Satoshi would have intended it to be, and it's really not difficult. Sure, the code was hard work. It's been a slog. But it's not cutting edge, breaking, we're not curing cancer, right? It's fairly straightforward. We knew what the problems were that we had to solve, and it was basically from getting here to there, and it just required lots of coffee, actually lots of bulletproof coffee. I've been drinking bulletproof, which I can highly recommend, by the way, and just slogging it out. And we're getting to the point now where people are emailing us and saying, oh, wow, this has had all these unintended consequences, and we don't have to store anyone's money, right? I'll talk more about it because we're going to do a crowdfund in a couple of weeks, but I'll talk more about it. But essentially, it's a Bitcoin wallet that sits in your browser, and it does some funky stuff, and we don't have to be custodians of anything. You look after your private keys. And what I plan to do, if the community gives me permission, by sending me lots of money, and then my promise will be that I will make lots of educational material, and you know that I can do that. I've already demonstrated that for the last 2 years. So I'll do educational material, and it will get lay people that aren't used to looking after big long passwords an easy way into how to do that. And then there's no need for all these top secret like meetings in Barbados or wherever the fuck it is, and like, you know, getting together in a little huddle and colluding about what they're going to do next. There's no need for that. You're just in the business of looking after people's passwords for them. It's really not difficult.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's good to look at it like, let's try to actually work within the scope of the white paper and try to engender decentralization and the things that we're doing. There's so many people that are trying to latch on to the systems of antiquity in a top-down approach model that's going to, you know, bootstrap, and that's not good. I mean, we want to do, you know, bottom-up, not top-down again, and have the same fractional reserve failure token substrate nonsense over and over and over again.
It shouldn't just be a trickle-down waterfall, Blake. Maybe we should use Agile and Scrum for our Bitcoin development, something more complicated.
Get some better iterations.
Well, look, guys, tonight I was at the Stripe event in London. Stripe are a startup in Silicon Valley. They're from Ireland originally, but they're based in Silicon Valley now, and they do kind of online payments. And I'm not being paid to say this or anything. I just went along to their meetup here in London to meet some of the developers, and they have been working on like Bitcoin integration, and I was asking them about that. But the reason I like them is because they're very community driven. They're just a bunch of engineers. They've gone from the ground up. There was a lot of business development early on, slowly going around the banks trying to negotiate the fees down. And the company that I'm helping out at the moment, Chris McCready's company, has been on the show before. He's got a company called ShotRocket. I've been helping them get their new website up, and I've been doing a little bit of their stuff on social media as well to help them. And we're trying to help people get into Bitcoin, but it's so difficult. Like even a company the size of Stripe, with all the help they've had, I think, from Peter Thiel and people like that, even they are finding it. Even they're sort of shaking their heads going, Chris, you'll never be able to buy Bitcoins with credit cards. It's not because there's anything wrong with Bitcoin, or even so much that KYC is such a headache. It's more to do with the fact that the security in credit cards is broken. Consumers expect to be refunded if their credit cards get misused and have fraudulent transactions on them. And that demand gets fed into the banks. So the lack of responsibility on the part of the consumer gets fed into the banks. Now, the banks haven't innovated on security in credit cards since about 1986, right? So you're still dealing with the same kind of, what they use is something called out-of-band or multi-factor authentication, where in order to make the credit card more secure, rather than reinvent the whole technology and actually think about it deeply like Satoshi did, what they do is just keep getting you to give them more information, right? So now it's like, you know, it used to be the long number on the top, and then it was the expiry date, then it was the number on the back, then it's like your inside leg measurement, now they need your name and your address and your date of birth and your mother's maiden name, and they give all these multi-factors, and this is, every time they do this, they're using an extra factor of authentication, and then they try to go out of band, so they'll phone you up on your phone, or they'll send you a text, or they'll give you one of those devices, those one-time pads to do. And all you're doing is sticking a sticky plaster on an already gaping wound. The technology was broken at its very core right from the beginning. And rather than fix it from the ground up, they just keep putting patches on it because it's more profitable that way, and they meet their quarterly earnings figures. And anyway, why bother when you've got a massive insurance industry that profits very heavily from credit card fraud? Because they get to charge all these extra fees on top, which then companies like Visa then pass on to the merchant, which then makes it impossible to become entrepreneurial and set up a business.
Yeah, it's fundamentally unsustainable and flawed all the way down to the infrastructure, all the way down to the presumptive axioms that we're operating on. It's all broken, every single piece of it. So a new infrastructural protocol and language that communicates value, I mean, that's the exact thing that we need.
Yeah.
This is interesting to me. I mean, my first thought is, why bother trying to convince these people to use Bitcoin? I used to be a Bitcoin evangelist where I wanted to get everyone on board, and I just this week heard an amazing interview on Crypto Convos by MK Lords. She interviewed Brian Sovereign of Sovereign Tech, and she asked him, you know, well, how can we expand the world of Bitcoin? How can we market this better? And he was like, I don't care. He's like, I don't want to. The people who are using Bitcoin now are the people who need to be using Bitcoin. And when people have a need for Bitcoin, it's there for them. They can discover it. So why convince people who are happy with their broken, shitty system that they should use something far superior when they'll come crying later on?
Well, I believe in permission marketing. I think it's just about marketing is about leadership and visibility. It's not about persuading people or trying to convert anyone into believing what you believe. But we should send out a beacon, I think. Like we should send out a message, and if people want to hear that message and they're ready, then I think they'll come when they're ready in their good time, right? Yeah, obviously I've said it before too many times, but I strongly disagree with these let's get Bitcoin into the mainstream philosophies. But I do think there are lots of people out there that probably need Bitcoin more than they realize, that might be ready for it but don't realize it yet. And that's why I think it's important to keep the presence, you know, and say things. And I embarked on this project partly because, well, no, actually not even partly because, mostly because I wanted the artists to be rewarded for their work. And I see, as a developer, I can build tools with Bitcoin. I can't do that with credit cards, right? Because then I'd have to have caged servers and I would have to be regulated. I'd have to become a bank or at least a custodian. And I don't have the money to do that. It's $5,000 just to sign up for the BitLicense thing. And then there's all these other capital requirements they lay on you.
Well, so, and I feel like we're promoting standards and best practices as well, and not so much promoting, you know, the hoarding of Bitcoin or like, you know, buy this as an investment vehicle so it'll bring it up fractionally for me. We're promoting a series of best practices and standards of security, cryptography, multi-signature, various ways of representing and rewarding content creators in a decentralized nature. And I think that those are the things that people maybe would be more receptive to than just try this new token of value that'll go up or that you can, you know, hoard and maybe make some money on. Because I think you're right. I think that maybe I don't really want to tell people that, and people probably don't really want to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, those standards are part of what I was going to talk about today before all this happened. There's this great article on Medium called Forgetting Firefox, and I've got the link on my Twitter. And at the end of this great comparison of Firefox and Chrome and how the two competed and Chrome kind of won, the guy reminds us, what about Thunderbird? Thunderbird, the open source, encryptable email and calendaring app. Maybe we could bring that back. And I think that's a great idea.
The thing is that consumers don't like that Thunderbird was ugly and it was slow. That's why it didn't win. And Google was just so convenient. And it just works. And I still use Firefox. I use Chrome too, just because it's so much quicker when I do these videos, for example, and to pull up the videos and everything. But I would like to get back into Firefox. I think we need to get much more back now to the standards, the Internet Engineering Task Force. I know that Cody Wilson is trying to break his way into and break his way out of, rather, the Bitcoin Foundation. And it looks like he's got the support of Gavin Andreessen too, the lead developer of Bitcoin, who now in some...
He tweeted the other day that he was a liar and didn't have his support, though. Gavin.
Oh, really? Okay,
wasn't a liar.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I didn't think that I thought that was a little bit far-fetched of Cody to say that. But Cody's a master PR man, right? Like, he knows how to spin a message, and he can pull out all the quotes from Baudrillard and Rousseau. And
yeah, I don't have an opinion one way or the other. That's just what he said in the tweet, so I wanted to barf that out there.
Right. But even so, the quote I know that is true from Gavin is that Gavin has expressed lament, and he has said that he wished that the Bitcoin Foundation had been more like the Internet Engineering Task Force, who built the internet with requests for comments. It's like, duh! You only just realised that? See, in my heart of hearts, I'd love to believe that, Gavin, but you know what? I think the reason you like to set up the Bitcoin Foundation is because you wanted to get paid that fat salary. That's the real reason you did it. And for you to turn around now, 5-6 years later, and say that you wish you hadn't set up this foundation is really regrettable. You know, that's really shameful. You shouldn't have ever done that. Of course, when you create a concentrated slush fund of money, of course it's going to attract nefarious actors. They always do. Parasites always fly to shit. That's where you find parasites, around areas of fecundity and growth and value. And so I'm really not liking this guy right now. I really think that's an awkward, backward thing to say. But also, like, since I've been learning to code, I'm really looking forward to going more into the code on this network. And I think we really need to step up. Like, I keep getting told this, but we're like the most trusted source of information in the whole of the cryptosphere, and that's something we can be proud of. People will always tell me that, like always. Because all these other journals and all these other so-called online magazines, they're just PR people. They're just pumping out press messages and stuff like that. And I get so many inbound Skype requests saying, "Oh, can I add you? I want to tell you about this new project I'm working on. It's all about helping the poor." And then you read this fucking... So one of the journalists at the Financial Times, Isabella, she's been sending me all of these emails she gets from all of these like Bitcoin 2.0 companies, and it's like, and they start out like going, oh, Bitcoin is dead, but now we've got this new thing, and this thing's better than Bitcoin because it's faster, and it's all this sort of thing, and it's like Bitcoin 2.0. And it's just opportunism, and it doesn't matter. It could be anything. This hype wave, said it before, it could be bathroom tiles, or it could be blue tack. It doesn't matter. It's a hype wave, and everyone's getting into the hype because they want their money to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And to me, what that really communicates is that we're not thinking about what's most important. Because if you wanted money that badly, you'd spend the money on getting the money, which is kind of what the traders do. But I don't think it's the money that people find really valuable. So I can't wait to start going into some of the code that I've been learning about how this works, because you really could set up distributed markets that are impossible for people to shut down, like the Silk Road, where you're just masquerading behind a PGP key. But it's really what I've realized in the last few weeks since I've been working on it, is it's really about the user experience. It's actually not the code. The code is just tough work, right? The code just takes time for you to get through. But once you've done it, it's really all about the user experience. Like, how do you make a PGP key look nicer and look friendlier to a layperson that isn't used to associating with all these random numbers and letters? And there are ways of doing it. You can do things like truncating it down, putting it into a nice font, using a good color scheme, taking them through things step by step, breaking it down, getting the user to say up front what their skill level already is, so that you can tailor that experience to them. So you can say, like, do you want to use it on advanced, spy level, or do you want to just use it as a novice user, and then kind of take them through those steps, and actually let them invest in this as an opportunity. Like, I want to wear this. I want to be one of these people that knows how to be in control of their own wealth, which is a very, very powerful proposition for a lot of people.
Quick update on the Bitcoin price. The price does not seem to care about the Ross Ulbricht verdict. The price is still at 225. There's no large swings either way. If you recall, the last time, I think when the Ross Ulbricht was originally announced as being the Dread Pirate Roberts and the Silk Road was shut down, there was a large effect on price, but we're not seeing that today. So, but go ahead, Blake.
Yeah, the effect on price, I believe, was as a result of the general public being made fully aware of the money no longer flowing through that medium, and then there was, the reaction to that. But yeah, as to what Chris was saying, becoming your own bank is a powerful notion, and being able to become your own bank and really taking responsibility for the level of security that's required in the modern age is an empowering thing. Think about it as like modern technological survival skills to really be able to know and understand the security that you need to be, independent. And fundamentally, everything is not really secure. Like we were saying, I wrote an article a while ago about how the way that the basically 4 largest financial institutions, banks in the world, are not, fundamentally secure. There's way too many attack vectors, and blockchain technology like Bitcoin is required for the future. There is no way to continually secure the systems of antiquity. It's not an option, and I don't think that many people understand that. So when Bitcoin has price volatility up and down, that's all good and fine, but the going back isn't an option. So unless we see something that's objectively much better than Bitcoin, Bitcoin's not dead.
That's very true. It's not dead. But we are running low on time for this show. Do you guys want to go on to a new issue, or do you want to head towards the exit? Derek, what do you think?
Yeah, I just wanted to show Ross Ulbricht's fundraiser QR code once more. I think it's important that if he's going to not spend the rest of his life in jail, if you think this person's a hero, the only next chance he has is an appeal. So here's his QR code. There were some donations that came in when we asked for money before, but there haven't been any since. And so, hey, here's your opportunity. If you didn't give money before, send Ross a few bucks, please.
And we're going to go ahead and end the show. We've had 2 breaking news stories today. Ross Ulbricht found guilty on all charges, and the revised Bit license is now available on Ben Losky's Twitter account. We also have that on @MadBitcoin, so you can check that out. Of course, it's on Reddit, rbitcoin. and we're going to be watching those developments, and we'll be back here next week on Bitcoin Talk Show. Bye-bye.